So we are doing Joel. Joel is not very long. One of the reasons why we picked it, though, is Joel is like the reading for Ash Wednesday. So that's it is our reading. So I kind of expect it maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks. We'll see how it goes. We'll do our kind of normal setup today, where we'll watch Bible Project video and kind of read through it. I think it may be good. I like reading through the whole book before we kind of do it. So we'll read through the whole thing, and then we'll kind of get our overall temperature of it, and then we may read the first chapter and do that treatment to it. And I do think the Bible Project outline here, pictorial outline, is very helpful in talking about it, and so that's a good thing. But yeah, it's not that long of a book, so we'll see how long it takes us. But we could be thinking where we want to go to next. We can even do Hosea, which is right before it, or something like that. We could stay in the Old Testament for a while. Hosea is really fun. Like that's a good one. It doesn't talk about prostitutes or anything. And so I'm kidding, but
it does.
Yeah, like that. And so all right. So let's watch the Bible Project video here. So let me make sure I get it on the right screen. All right, and then let's go over to Zoom. And I can share. It's been a while since I did all this. I'm rusty. And then let's see, optimize for video. And hit that button. Hit that button.
The book of the prophet Joel. It's a short collection of prophetic poems that are both powerful and puzzling. Joel is unique among the prophets for a few reasons. First of all, there's no explicit indication of when this book was written. It's most likely the period of Ezra and Nehemiah, after the return from the exile, because he mentions Jerusalem and the temple, but there doesn't seem to be any kings. Also unique is that Joel is clearly familiar with many other scriptural books. He alludes to or quotes from the prophets Isaiah, Amos, Zephaniah, Nahum, Obadiah, Ezekiel, Malachi, even the book of Exodus. And this is connected with the last unique feature, and that's that Joel never accuses Israel of any specific sin. So, like many of the other prophets, he announces that God's judgment is coming to confront Israel's sin, but he never says why. And that's most likely because Joel assumes that, like him, you have been reading the books of the prophets, and so you already know all about Israel's rebellion. Now, altogether, these three features help us understand this fascinating little book. That Joel is a biblical author who was himself immersed in earlier biblical writings, and his reflection on them helped him make sense of the tragedies of his day, but also they gave him hope for the future. Let's dive in and we'll see how this book works. In chapters 1 and 2, Joel focuses on the day of the Lord. This is a key theme in the prophets, and it describes events in the past when God appeared in a powerful way to save his people or confront evil. Think about the plagues in the book of Exodus. But the prophets saw in these past events pointers to a future time when God would again confront evil among his people, but also among the nations, and bring salvation to the whole world. And so here, in chapters 1 and 2, Joel has brought two parallel poems together that focus on this theme. So chapter 1 is about a past day of the Lord. He begins by announcing a recent disaster that a locust swarm has devastated Israel. And his description of the swarm recalls the day of the Lord against Egypt. Remember the 8th plague from Exodus chapter 10. Except this time, the locusts are being sent against Israel. And so Joel calls on the elders and the priests to lead the people in repentance and prayer, and then Joel actually himself repents along with all of the priests. Chapter 2 comes alongside, and it has the same poetic design and flow of thought. So Joel announces another day of the Lord, except this time it's future, not past. It's an imminent disaster coming on Jerusalem. And he begins describing what seems like another wave of locusts, but he uses military and cosmic imagery. So the locusts become God's army, like cavalry and soldiers that are marching and destroying everything in their path. And the sun is darkened, and the earth quakes, and Joel says, "The day of the Lord, it's dreadful. Who can endure it?" And so once more, Joel calls on the people to pray and repent. And he says how. to rend your hearts, not your garments, and return to your God. In other words, Joel knows that repentance can be just a show that you put on to get out of trouble. And he says God's not interested in that. He wants genuine change for his people to stop their selfishness and evil. And then Joel says why Israel should repent, because God is gracious and compassionate. He's slow to anger, and he's full of love. He's quoting here from the book of Exodus about how God forgave Israel after they made the golden calf. And from that story, Joel learned that God's mercy and love is more powerful than his wrath and judgment. And so he leads the priests in acts of repentance and prayer, asking God to spare his people. Then right after these two poems, the scene shifts, and we have a short narrative about God's response to the repentance of Joel and the people. So God was filled with passion for his land, and he had pity on his people. And then God says he's going to reverse the devastating effects of this day of the Lord and turn it from judgment into salvation. So first he's going to defeat the threatening invaders, which were presumably the locusts, and he's going to turn them all away to their own ruin. Then he's going to restore the devastated land and bring it back to life, making it abundant once more. And finally, God says he's going to bring his divine presence among his people. It will become real and accessible to everyone. Now, up to this point, the poems tell a powerful story about Joel leading Israel to see how their sin led to disaster and divine judgment, and that with the God of mercy there is always hope. But Joel sees in all of these past events an image of the future day of the Lord. And so in the final section of the book, Joel writes 3 more poems that match God's 3-part response. And he weaves together images from other prophetic books and expands it all into a vision of hope for all creation. So first, the hope of God's presence among his people gets expanded into a promise about how one day in the future, God's own Spirit, his personal life presence, will fill not just the temple, but all of his people. And here Joel is drawing upon the promises of Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, that God's Spirit would come to transform and empower his people so that they can truly love and follow him. Joel then picks up God's promise that he'll confront the threatening invader. And Joel sees in these ravaging locusts a similarity to the arrogant, violent nations of his own day that ravage and oppress people. And so he draws upon the promises of Isaiah and Zephaniah and Ezekiel about the future day of the Lord, when God will confront evil among all the nations and turn their violence back on themselves, bringing justice to right all wrongs. And finally, Joel picks up the images of the land's restoration, and he sees here a hope for the renewal of all creation. So he draws on the promises of Isaiah and Ezekiel and Zechariah that God's final day of justice will be followed by a restoration of the entire world, a new Eden, where God's presence in Jerusalem will flow out like a river and bring about cosmic renewal. And so Joel's poem ends with God's forgiveness and mercy opening up a whole new creation. And so this little book of Joel, it explores profound ideas about how human sin and failure wreak such devastating destruction in our world, about how God longs to show mercy to those who will just own up to their sin and confess it, and about how all of that leads us to hope that God will one day defeat evil in our world, but also inside of us, and bring his healing presence to make all things new. And that's what the book of Joel is all about.
Okay. All right, so we'll stop share. Okay. All right, so we have Joel there. Now, the way Tim Mackey was describing it, I really liked that the top right like scene on there, and what he said about that. It'll be fun to read that here a little bit, but about how evil kind of turns on itself, type of thing. Kind of it is, kind of ultimately self-destroying type of thing, and we see that that's kind of God's justice, right? The way Gloria will recognize this, I've said this for years. It's careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Like that. And that is, Lee would recognize that too. Like that has been one of my original things I've said here. And I think that's picking up that idea that, we often want power and people to know, like, oh, this is what's right and all that stuff. And when you find yourself on the other end of that, it's like, ooh, like, I don't know, like that's so. So, did anyone have any thoughts about the outline before we read through the whole book? Nothing? All right.
Remind you a little bit of Revelation.
So, yeah, you reminded me of that. It did remind me of Revelation. Yeah, like we just did Revelation over, what was that, the summer? Yeah. We're kind of into the fall. Like we just finished it right before Christmas. That's right. So
Equally uplifting.
it was equally, yeah, I think it is uplifting.
Between that and Isaiah, we moved right into Joel.
Yeah. I think Revelation's very uplifting. Like that's it's just who are you identifying with? Like so that's but and this is kind of a similar way here, but yeah, like the Revelation stuff. In what way did it kind of remind you of Revelation stuff? Because it reminded me of that too.
Another thing that he didn't mention was Matthew. There's a lot of these scriptures from here, the same thing as in Matthew.
Yeah, so Matthew kind of keeps going back to Joel.
Back to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's good. That's good. So yeah, we'll have to remember those as we go through it.
I'm always fascinated by Bible Project's graphics. Why is Joel tattered? Why is the day of the Lord fractured?
Because it's the great and glorious day of the Lord. It's like this scary thing. It's like the beginning of this sermon series we did before COVID. We called it The Day. And
on the day of the Lord.
yeah, and I was kind of like, I wonder if we should bring that one back in the next couple of years. And so, like, because we did it in Lent, it might be a good Lent one to do, because it goes through a lot of these ideas of the day of the Lord. So, like, I think we started in the Tower of Babel. And so it's like a judgment idea going on all through the Old Testament. And where you end up getting to is the Gospels pick up on the day of the Lord also, and that's the cross of Jesus. Like and so what you end up seeing is that the day that God brings the great and glorious day of the Lord onto himself. And so that's kind of why it's tattered, because it's kind of a judgment thing. And I think the reason why the Joel is so well, you can see it's got a locust sitting on top of it. The locusts are eating the beginning of Joel there. Like it's like that. That's
But I think the end is not. So I think that's like going through Joel, all this terrible stuff, but there is hope.
Yeah, there's hope.
Right.
There's locusts at the beginning, and then there's hope, restoration at the end, which is what Eden represents. So good. So let's actually read through the book. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's only 3 chapters. And it's all poetry, so get ready for that. Whenever I read poetry stuff, it makes me kind of, I don't actually have this desire, but when I go back into college and remember all the books we read that were just, in high school too, that were just poetry, so Christopher Nolan's doing the Odyssey, and that's going to come out this summer. And I was like, oh, that might be interesting. And I was like, oh, it's all poetry. That's a lot. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not that bad, but it's still I'm like, oh, okay.
Pastor Chris Philistine.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, please be impressed by my academic prowess. And I remember being a child, and my mom read. What's that? Along the waters, the Hiawatha or something like that.
By the shores of Gittico.
Yeah, exactly. That was because my mom would always read to us every night, and that was one of them that she did. And so that was so I still remember that. That's
Really well.
Oh yeah, well it's I don't remember much about it. But I was.
Oh, you remember it being read to you?
Yeah, I remember it being read to me. I mean, I don't know, 11? Yeah, like that. Like when that was happening. All right, let's see. So let's begin with Joel here. Let me share the screen.
So interesting, the Jewish Bible divides it into 4 chapters.
Oh, really? I didn't even think about bringing the Jewish Bible out. We'll do that for next week.
That's one I didn't look
Well,
at.
it's interesting because he divides it into 4 sections also.
Did that flow? Like, oh, but you weren't reading with that. Yeah. Well, you can let us know how it's different.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
The Book of Joel. The word of the Lord that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel.
Hear this, you elders, and give ear, all you inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Tell your children about it. Let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. What the chewing locust left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust left, the crawling locust has eaten. And what the crawling locust left, the consuming locust has eaten. Awake, you drunkards, and weep, and wail, all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it has been cut off from your mouth.
For a nation has come up against my land, strong and without number. His teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he has the fangs of a fierce lion. He has laid waste my vine, and ruined my fig tree. He has stripped it bare and thrown it away. Its branches are made white.
Lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. The grain offering and the drink offering have been cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn who minister to the Lord. The field is wasted, the land mourns, for the grain is ruined. The new wine is dried up, the oil fails. Be ashamed, you farmers, wail, you vine dressers, for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field has perished. The vine is dried up, and the fig tree has withered. The pomegranate tree, the palm tree also, and the apple tree, all the trees of the field are withered. Surely joy has withered away from the sons of men. Gird yourselves and lament, you priests. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, lie all night in sackcloth, you who minister to my God. For the grain offering and the drink offering are withheld from the house of your God. Consecrate a fast, call a sacred assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord, alas for the day! For the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. Is not the food cut off before our eyes? Joy and gladness from the house of our God? The seed shrivels under the clods. Storehouses are in shambles. Barns are broken down, for the grain has withered. How the animals groan. The herds of cattle are restless because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment. O Lord, to you I cry out, for fire has devoured the open pastures, and a flame has burned all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field also cry out to you, for the water brooks are dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures.
Blow the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. For it is at hand, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like the morning clouds spread over the mountains.
A people come, great and strong, the like of whom has never been, nor will there ever be any such after them, even for many successive generations. A fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land is like the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Surely nothing shall escape them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and like swift steeds so they run. With a noise like chariots over mountain tops they leap, like the noise of a flaming fire that devours the stubble. Like a strong people set in battle array. Before them, the people writhe in pain. All faces are drained of color. They run like mighty men. They climb the wall like men of war. Everyone marches in formation, and they do not break ranks. They do not push one another. Everyone marches in his own column. Though they lunge between the weapons, they are not cut down. They run to and fro in the city. They run on the wall. They climb into the houses. They enter at the windows like a thief. The earth quakes before them. The heavens tremble. The sun and moon grow dark, and the stars diminish their brightness. The Lord gives voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For strong is the one who executes his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible. Who can endure it?
Now, therefore, turn to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning.
So rend your heart, and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and he relents from doing harm. Who knows if he will turn and relent, and leave a blessing behind him, a grain offering and a drink offering for the Lord your God. Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, call a sacred assembly, gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children and nursing babes. Let the bridegroom go out from his chamber, and the bride from her dressing room. Let the priests who minister to the Lord weep between the porch and the altar. Let them say, "Spare your people, O Lord, and do not give your heritage to reproach, that the nations should rule over them. Why should they say among the peoples, 'Where is their God?'" Then the Lord will be zealous for his land and pity his people. The Lord will answer and say to his people,
Behold, I will send you grain and new wine and oil, and you will be satisfied by them. I will no longer make you a reproach among the nations, but I will remove far from you the northern army, and will drive him away into a barren and desolate land, with his face toward the eastern sea, and his back toward the western sea. His stench will come up, and his foul odor will rise, because he has done monstrous things.
Fear not, O land. Be glad and rejoice, for the Lord has done marvelous things. Do not be afraid, you beasts of the field, for the open pastures are springing up, and the tree bears its fruit. The fig tree and the vine yield their strength. Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the former rain faithfully, and he will cause the rain to come down for you, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. The threshing floor shall be full of wheat, and the vats shall overflow with new wine and oil.
So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, and the chewing locust, my great army, which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty, and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never be put to shame. Then you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. I am the Lord your God, and there is no other. My people shall never be put to shame. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also on my men servants and on my maid servants I will pour out my Spirit in those days. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved.
For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the remnant whom the Lord calls.
For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. They have cast lots for my people, have given a boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they may drink. Indeed, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Philistia? Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me, swiftly and speedily I will return your retaliation upon your own head. Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my prized possessions. Also, the people of Judah and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks, that you may remove them far from their borders. Behold, I will raise them out of the place to which you have sold them, and will return your retaliation upon your own head. I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off. For the Lord has spoken.
Proclaim this among the nations. Prepare for war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble and come, all you nations, and gather together all around. Cause your mighty ones to go down there, O Lord. Let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and moon will grow dark, and the stars will diminish their brightness. The Lord also will roar from Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and earth will shake, but the Lord will be a shelter for his people, and the strength of the children of Israel.
So you shall know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then Jerusalem shall be holy, and no aliens shall ever pass through her again.
And it will come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drip with new wine, the hills shall flow with milk, and all the brooks of Judah shall be flooded with water. A fountain shall flow from the house of the Lord, and water the valley of Acacias. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom a desolate wilderness, because of violence against the people of Judah. For they have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judah shall abide forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation.
For I will acquit them of the guilt of bloodshed, whom I had not acquitted. For the Lord dwells in Zion.
All right. All right. Got this. Okay. All right. So how the whole book work there? So anything that stands out to you as we kind of talk about the whole thing before we go into like individual chapters here?
I need some clarification in terms of the change in the voice. What's
Yeah.
going on?
I'm not sure why they're changing the voice. I think there's a little bit of a change. I noticed that too. There's a little bit of a change.
It seemed like he was changing between Joel
Okay.
and the voice of the Lord.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know that's true. It just seemed like that's what was happening.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought too, even though it's not like in parentheses, like the Lord speaking in
Yeah.
the text, it kind of.
It's almost like Joel is, like the way we kind of assume that the prophets are kind of talking for God. There was a couple parts where Joel is talking, and that's you can kind of see those. But I think that's kind of what's going forward. I think it's a good observation.
So how did this, like, so Joel wrote this, and then did someone read it out loud so people could hear it? I mean, how did it become, yeah, what happens after he writes it? Who does he give it to, and?
I don't really know. Like it's.
Read in the synagogue, you know.
Yeah, it would have taken some time to get canonized. I don't think it, instantly goes in there. I think it's one of these things like, oh, this wrote pretty good and it's timely. They get some time off of this. But I have a feeling, so it's going to be different than today, but I think it helps to see how things get popular today. Is that people read them and they're like, oh, like this is pretty good, and it just kind of rises above the fray, that it's probably speaking to some realities that's going on inside of there. And that popularity could be coming from it could be coming from the people, but it also could be coming from the priestly class or something like that. So I don't have a good answer for you on that. I should probably know more about that stuff, but like that's how we got the New Testament, is that the church was like, the churches are recognizing value in these books, and they kind of, I mean, they didn't really canonize it, but they were like, hey, this is the list of the good books.
Yeah, because like for a scientific paper, you write the paper, you submit it to a journal, it's peer reviewed. I wonder if that, okay, so other priests would read it and say, oh yeah, I'm checking his references here, that's right.
A lot of references.
Yeah,
No
one maybe knows.
And it's, and think about, like how this would have been, not many people could read.
Right.
So it would have been being read. And you think about the overall gist of what it's doing. It's like what Tim Mackey was saying here, that it's assuming that you know all these stories in the Old Testament. Like, because it's constant, right? Especially Exodus. Like, it just so much sounds like Exodus in this book. Like that's over there. And I think that's why it sounds so much like Revelation there too, because it sounds like Exodus. It sounds like when God told Moses to go say, let my people go. I mean, it's talking about darkness and it's talking about all these things. This is why I say, if you can have a good handle on Genesis and Exodus in the story, if you can have a good handle on those two books, that's like a primer for the rest of the Bible, because everything else is just using the Exodus, using creation, using Abraham, using all that stuff to tell the story. And I think this comes alive when you start looking at it through those lenses. Like the way he starts with like a locust swarm, like that is referencing like the plagues, but the plague isn't going on to someone else. The plague is falling on to like Israel themselves, which is which is interesting. You know, that's an interesting dichotomy, you know, that it's not just pointing out at other people. Does that make sense? Like it's like
that's a dual meaning, the locust, like the Assyrians come in, but do you think that a part of the locust thing is the Assyrians?
Yeah. I think it's coming. I think like they're like, why has this happened? You know, why have we been taken over like this? You know?
So it's kind of, playing on what you said, it's sort of the invasion of the Assyrians, the invasion of, I'm lost my train of thought, but it's all the invasions that came in and took away Judah. They all them away and kept them in captivity.
Yeah.
And then God restored them. So I think he's bringing back into Isaiah. That's how I felt about it.
And then almost after, you almost think, well, then Christ came, and then and a little bit further, it's the Spirit coming down. And
well, you have all this restoration.
Picture right through the rest of the Bible.
Like, and that's and I think that's a helpful image there, because you see, like when we get into the New Testament, the story doesn't really change. You know, like that's you know, in the way, you know, when we looked at the end of Revelation, it's a very similar, like that last battle here at the end of Joel looks very similar to that last battle, because I mean, look at how Joel sets it up. It's like, it's all these people that all these things that are like, you know, get all these huge armies together and all that stuff, and yet there's no battle. You know, that's Revelation. Remember, we had a big discussion about that, Tracy. We had a big discussion because people were like, no, there's a battle. I'm like, where? And so, like that was a big to do around here, and but it looks really similar to that, you know, and then you notice, like, it all kind of just like God is in control. Like all these people rise up in power, and yet, you know, and then it goes into all this Eden language, and it's like what chapter 3 verse 19. I'm just looking at it here, like. Egypt will be desolate. Like it's calling it out. Like remember, there's all these Babylons that have existed over time. You know, Egypt is a Babylon. Babylon is a Babylon. This was the point of our Day of the Lord sermon series when we did it. This is kind of making me want to do that series again.
I think you should.
It's the logo for the Day of the Lord sermon series. The A of day was the Tower of Babel. And so I'm about to say some nice fresh heresy, but this heresy is 6 to 7 years old out of my lips now. And that stuff. But when I grew up, I always understood the Tower of Babel was like, oh, blah, 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 like you confused the language, which is true, but that's not what's in Hebrew. It is what's in Hebrew, but it's also not. The tower in Hebrew is the Tower of Babylon. Like the scriptures are saying what's going on right there at the beginning of the story, right before we meet Abraham. It's like the people have wanted to build the Tower of Babylon, the tower of power, to reach God themselves. This is the beginning of the story. And then you just see that's what the rest of the story is all about. And you see the other way, and you get into the Gospels, and Jesus throws aside the Tower of Babylon and goes low, you know, like that. That's that's why you see here, you know, as it's talking about what has happened to all of them, he's like, rend your hearts, not your garments. Like, quit being fake about it all. You know, you've let all this stuff. You brought this onto yourselves. Basically, like you have only served yourselves. You left others out, and like all these things. So yeah.
Well, I'm looking at it in the light from New Testament and Christian. You know, it makes sense. You know, Jesus, that the rending of the curtain in the temple and the Holy Spirit coming and dwelling within us, and not just in the temple. But I wonder, like, because scholars didn't want, or the Pharisees or whatever, they like rejected that idea.
They rejected Jesus.
Yeah. And that, so do they today still expect the Messiah to come and,
I think
They
so.
don't have a temple.
I think so.
yeah.
And they, yes, they expect that, but it's also, they have different expectations of it too than we do. Like, so, like in Isaiah, what's the passage? It's very messianic of Isaiah, of the new one coming. Oh man, it's right there in my, yeah, I'm lost. Oh gosh. With the morning star or something like that? I can't remember. It's right on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember it right now. But the Jewish scholars really think that is Israel itself over and above like this one that's come to save them. Like that's kind of how they define what's going on in Isaiah. So they often look at things a little different. Now we look at it and we're like, oh gosh, Jesus is all over this.
Yeah.
We see Jesus all over it. And they'll define it a little differently. And they're looking forward to the new day of the new Eden as well. And we just see that it's Jesus that gets us there. But you see this overall pattern of going aside from the ways of Babylon, because the ways of Babylon are so enticing, but the ways of Babylon bring on the day of the Lord. And there's this interesting, let's see, where was it? Oh yeah, chapter 2, like verse 20. Yeah, verse 20. Like he's like, I'll drive the northern horde far from you, pushing into the parched and barren land. Its eastern ranks will drown in the Dead Sea, and its western ranks in the Mediterranean Sea. And then this is the part that it got me. And its stench will go up and its smell will rise.
It's not a payback.
Yeah, there was no fruitfulness, and it's like you'll recognize, you'll see there's no fruitfulness. Like, and I think this is the same, like, because if you notice all through, let's see, chapter 1, verse 6, or verse 7, it's like, I laid waste my vines and ruined my fig trees, all this stuff. There's no fruitfulness to it all. And I think this is why in the Gospels it picks up, it's like, you'll know the people by their fruit. And basically what it's saying here is like, Israel, you're fruitful, you're fruitless. Even your worship and your lament before God, you are doing it as a show. Like that. It's like it's almost like he's saying, rend your heart, not your garments. It's almost like the like, this is kind of a funny little aside from it, but it's almost like the temple has a line item budget for garments, like that. It's like, oh, we gotta have this lament and all that stuff, and they're like, let's go get one of the garments, and we'll all make a big show of it, like that's, and it becomes almost like a commodity. It's like this. Like, I really see that's what David does. Like that's David kind of gets to this place after Bathsheba where like he pisses off God and he's like, dang, okay, God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I took it too far, and like all those things, and it's the same idea of this kind of false piety. Like it kind of comes onto it, and I see that kind of acting out in here. Oh, I also wrote a little note in here: the rend your heart and not your garments is the clutching of the pearls that I always talk about. Like that. That's always it's like, don't just clutch your pearls. like actually be sad about what's going on here. Let's see. There was a couple of interesting things. Chapter 2, verse 3, before them a fire devours, behind them a flame blazes. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, behind them a desert waste. Nothing escapes them. You know, they're talking about that going in there. That reminded me of the phrase at the beginning of Genesis of tohu vavohu, which, you know, we view as formless and void, but Tim Mackey, he defines it as wild and waste. And so it's like this, it's this thing of like discreation, you know, uncreation that is good. And so then you see by the end of the book here, the recreation coming back in. And so these are just thoughts as I was reading it, they were coming into my mind there. What else kind of stood out to you?
I thought it was interesting in the Reads chapter 4, and it's beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. The opposite.
Yeah. And then where is the other one? Where is the opposite one?
Isaiah 2:4 that says, and Micah 4:3.
Right.
Micah 4:3 and Isaiah 2. That is, I noticed that too. I was like, that's backwards. That's backwards. But look at how it's being used in Joel, though. It's in this rising up in power type of thing. It's kind of being said in this fight and all that stuff.
Because you're righteous, you get to do it backward.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Being cynical. You're questioning, well, we're pounding our plowshares into swords, but it's because we're righteous, we can get away with that.
Oh, so I like that. I've been watching Lord of the Rings.
What?
The extended.
What more is it to say?
The extended edition.
There we go.
Each one of those is 4 hours long. Like that. So these are week-long affairs of the evenings. Yeah. But I was like, I've never read them. And I watched them when they were in the theaters, and I was like, let's do this again. And as someone that I think is smarter now than I was, I don't know, when they come out 25 years ago, you know, I was like, oh, I think I see what Tolkien's doing. Like that's this thing of power that they have to give it to this one that has no power, the Hobbit, you know, and all these other people have to use this wisdom. They're like, I know that I will think I'm using the power for righteous means, but it won't be. And that's what you just said, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that. I think that's good. Like that when you're acting out in righteousness, you think that you can use any amount of power, right? Which then takes us back to the cross. Yeah. You know, and Jesus went this opposite way. And the great and glorious day of the Lord falls upon God himself. And
because he's talking to the other nations that had taken over Israel in the past.
Yeah.
When he says that, beat your.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Not to Israel, but to.
Yeah. So he's like, you're rise up in all your power.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. Because that matches Revelation beat for beat. Yeah. When all of those nations are rising up before that last battle of Megiddo, like, and all that stuff, like they're rising up in all their power, and it all just fizzles.
Yeah, and then I will judge all nations on every side. I mean, it's very like that.
Yeah. So
you're not going to judge you.
So is Joel using that as an opposite? Like that may have been a popular phrase of beat your swords into plowshares, and he's like all these other the Babylons of the world, like that they are going to fight, and they're going to turn their farming equipment into military implements. You know, like that's a cool way of looking at it. That's a cool way.
And that's kind of the when we get to God's paradise, you don't need the swords and the spears, so that's why you make them into plowshares.
He goes back to being a gardener.
Yeah, they're the opposite of what.
Yeah.
It's more like for the Battle of Armageddon.
Yeah.
And you go further on to.
And then so we get back to a garden again. And so you know, to go back to Tim Mackey's thing here, like we have all this Exodus imagery of being overrun, you know, overrun by this army, this idea that is just so big, and he's like, actually lament at this, like, don't just make a show of it, you know, which is kind of what Jesus says, like, don't let the world see you in the prayer and the righteousness stuff, right? Like, that's actually do it. And then he has, the other thing I wanted to say was, you can see how Hebrews construct their literature. It does this circle thing. It keeps going back and forth, and you can see that in how this is written, that it keeps, you know, going back to previous ideas as it's moving forward. You know, it's very artful in how it writes, but yeah, like, and how it's kind of moving from the desolation of what we saw in Egypt, in the Exodus, to the garden. So, or the way they put it in Exodus, moving from the slavery through the wilderness into the land flowing with milk and honey. You know, like that's, and we're always moving back to this kind of abundance model and into the new Eden. So yeah, we'll do chapter 1 next week. Maybe we'll do chapter 2. Maybe we'll do the whole book again. We'll see how fast we go through it, but we'll get a little bit deeper into Joel here. Was there anything at the very end here? All right. So for everyone that's watching on YouTube and re-recording, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.